Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Mind4Youth Charlotte Wellness Series. My name is Kayla Molina,
And I'm his co-host, Shresta Bethy.
and today we're with a special guest, Ms. Harris, a licensed clinical mental health therapist. So, to briefly recap what the Wellness Series is, it is a conversational series where students learn directly from mental health professionals, counselors, and educators through open, honest discussion. On the left, you can see a picture of episode one, where me and my someone on our team named Vivian talked with Ms. Tresler, a counselor that we brought on, and we had a really good time. And today's purpose is to offer practical guidance, encourage a healthy conversation about mental health, and help students better understand how to support each other, one another, and use strategies available to them. And with that, let's get started. So, Ms. Harris, to start, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? What inspired you to begin discussing mental health, and why is this topic so important to you?
So I'm Shaunacee Harris again. I'm the owner of Light of Resilience Counseling Services. My path to therapy is a little different. I have a lot of background in criminal justice. I watched a lot of Criminal Minds, so I thought I was going to be a profiler. So I went to school and got degrees surrounding that area. And then in that, I realized this ain't for me. So within that, I was able to do internships working with individuals who were just released from incarceration and they needed a lot of support. They needed travel, they needed housing, they needed ways to food, so many different areas and resources that they needed. So within that, I developed a passion for helping and supporting a population that most probably would not help out, and began to work with in a probation office and helping individuals get connected with mental health counseling services. So in that journey, I didn't really know too much about mental health because in my culture, it's not really something that was talked about growing up. So, like to hear the different stories and the trauma and the painful experiences a lot of that population had went through, it really sparked my interest of like, okay, I want to be on the other side. Right now, I'm sending you places to go get help, but I want to be the side of where you come to get help. So that initially started me to decide, okay, I want to pursue counseling to really support individuals that are dealing with anxiety, trauma, self-esteem issues, challenges with chronic illnesses, things to be able to empower their identity and giving them a voice, and being able to learn how to deal with life when it's so overwhelming that they don't have to figure it out alone.
Wow, that's really cool and inspiring. That you want to help people get the resources that they need that they may not be able to get.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. All right.
Now we're moving on to managing anxiety. So, how can we develop healthy strategies to manage anxieties? And do you have any good strategies that you would like recommend for coping?
Okay, no, totally understanding. So anxiety is probably sometimes seen as a bad thing, but it's not really always bad. Sometimes it's there to let you know that it's trying to protect you from something. So I say a lot of developing healthy strategies probably comes from knowing what is triggering your anxiety. And that could be like a person, that could be a place, that could be a certain time of the day. Like there's so many things that can represent what is triggering your anxiety, but to be able to know why it's showing up, how it shows up in your body, and what helps to relieve it, helps you to figure out what coping skill works for you. We can throw out a general coping skill, but sometimes it may not match up with the thing that your trigger is. So I say a lot of being curious first, being curious of why do I feel anxious, what is happening right now, what just happened, and then just kind of keeping track of that. The more curious you are, the more you can figure out what strategy will work best for you. And sometimes that does mean having a healthy outlet, whether that's a trusted adult figure, a friend. If you don't have anyone, journaling, getting your thoughts out somewhere. Because sometimes what happens is we consume so much in our head and there's no space to really think about what is happening right now. We're just dealing with that feeling, and we want to be able to have an outlet to free up some space, to be able to figure out what is going on, to be able to figure out what works for you. And that's not just talking with someone. It could be creative too. If you like drawing what that anxiety looks like, drawing what prompted, that anxiety. I have some people that record themselves talking through what they're feeling, but this kind of provides a space for you to first explore, be curious about what's there, and then from there you can figure out, especially in therapy, what best coping skill fits for you, depending upon what's your trigger.
Yeah,
I,
very well said.
I agree with you 100% on, trying to figure out what is giving you anxiety, because
Hmm.
I think that when you understand what is causing all this, then you can actually make a plan that will target that.
Right.
So whether it's maybe someone in your life that's bringing you down,
Hmm.
making you feel
Hmm.
bad by yourself, then maybe that's a signal to you to distance yourself or
Right.
communicate to them.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely.
All right, you have anything to say, Shorsa?
Not really. We can move on to the next slide.
All right. So life transitions and changes. So this is something that almost everyone has at least once, but major life changes like starting high school, moving, or changes within our family can feel overwhelming. How can teens navigate these transitions while maintaining their mental and emotional well-being?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is being patient with yourself, giving yourself grace and compassion, because a lot of these things are your first time ever experiences. So, you're not going to always know, what to do, but being hard on yourself about, well, I need to just figure it out or move past this doesn't necessarily help things to get better. So, like, a big part of being able to manage, those feelings is allowing yourself to feel those feelings first, hold space for them. And then from there, with that grace and compassion, really exploring how can I learn to cope that might look different than what I'm used to doing, because this is a completely, new experience. So I think a lot of it is letting yourself be okay with trial and error and figuring out what is going to help, with this transition, because you got to give yourself grace. You weren't just given the tools, for this change because you knew, that one day in life that you would experience this. So it's like it takes time to adjust, and giving yourself that space to be able to adjust without judgment.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think giving yourself permission to like not have like to understand that you don't have everything figured out like right then and there is just probably one
Yeah.
of the best ways you can get over this,
Yeah.
and just like really accept that you have to change as a person.
Right, right. And that acceptance part too sometimes takes time.
Mm.
Just because it's like it's not easy to come to terms with, I really gotta deal with something different. I
Mhm.
really gotta be in another school and make friends all over again. I don't like that. So it does take time, but that's where the just giving yourself permission to just kind of go through that process, feeling however you feel, until, you get to that place where, okay, I don't like this, but I'm accepting, this what this looks like.
Right, because some people still have to process like what they left behind, like they had a
Mhm.
whole life, and
Right,
just like give them time to adjust.
right. Allow yourself to grieve.
Mhm.
I agree. Allowing yourself to experience your emotions, that's really important. Like I don't want people to suppress their emotions because I think that makes it worse in the end.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
when you do eventually, try to work towards healing or, trying to um, move on maybe, um, or adjust, um, I think that you should have a mindset where, you try to look, um, look at the best things.
Hmm.
How do
Hmm.
you say it? Take it like have a good mindset, positive mindset,
Hmm. Hmm.
because I think like when you do that, you feel better, and that helps you when you try to adjust or adapt.
Right. Perspective is an important thing of like, I don't want to say like, oh, you shouldn't feel how you feel, but it's more so of like when you do get to that place of where you can see things in a more positive way, it does help, with this, how you're going to show up moving forward, depending upon what you're telling yourself about this experience.
100%.
Oh, next we're going to be talking about healing from past experiences. So, when someone goes through a difficult time or a painful experience, what would you say is like a healthy way to process this? Like, kind of going back on like the last slide, but
Hmm.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that processing is holding space for those feelings without judgment, because sometimes we're our harshest critics. And when we go through painful experiences, sometimes we like to look inwards and be very negative, towards ourselves. But we want to be able to safely hold a space, whether it's with yourself or a trusted, individual, of being able to just talk about the painful, experience, and not just like replaying it, but more so like, how do you really feel about it? How did it
Right.
impact you? How is it showing up in your life in day to day? Like, getting better to understand what that painful experience has done to you, to be able to start exploring, well, how do I heal? But of course, that looks like having a healthy outlet. So that means if you're going to people and they aren't being safe
Mm-hmm.
with the information that you are giving them about that experience, those are probably not, the outlets that, you want to be open with. So I would suggest, like, your school guidance counselor, if your parents are not a part maybe of that painful process, them, your friends. But I always stress too, of like, when there are very painful experiences that leave a long lasting impact, you don't have to be falling apart. You can still be maintaining and pushing through, but therapy is important, because it helps to get you to learn, how can you move forward in life. With healing, doesn't look like it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like I learned how to manage it and deal with it when it shows up, so that it doesn't consume my life. But there's skills that are needed to be able to have that, and a therapist, can work with you to provide, guidance on healing in a way that it gives you power back. And I learned how to deal with this in my way, of course, in a healthy way, versus I'm running from this thing and I don't, want to talk about it or deal with it. And then it's just keeps coming up,
Right.
and not necessarily being addressed.
Right. And I know a lot of kids, like, they just won't express themselves or they won't feel the need to talk to a trusted adult, especially in like these situations where they're going through something difficult. So, would you have like anything that you could give like words of advice to a lot of people? Because I know a lot of people would like suffer from that.
Yeah, absolutely. That shame is a very, big thing, because it's like you're thinking about, what does this information say about me? So I
Right.
don't necessarily, want to share that or feel comfortable, because somebody's going to think, something about me. And that's why it may not be safest, to go to anyone talking about it. But again, the journaling, is important, because it's like, as long as you have a space to get out what you're feeling, regardless if it's to someone else or not, that's still a part of your healing, and you can tear it up, you can, throw it away, you can do whatever you want with it after you get it out. But I think a lot of trying to challenge that shame of, like, if somebody's felt some type of negative way about me
Yeah.
because of this experience, is this really somebody that I want, to be a part of my circle? Especially if you feel like you can't be your genuine, authentic self with everything that comes with you with them.
I agree. Like, especially like during these times, I feel like people, like, if they want to do something that they personally love, they always have to face a stigma for it. And I know
Mhm.
there's a huge stigma surrounding mental health.
Yeah.
So, if you were to give a message to teens or anyone watching this video about like stigma and like not letting that define them, would you
Yeah.
say anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, remember, no, this, you're the only one that has to walk in your shoes. So you can absolutely sit there and suffer all day long, by holding this to yourself. But those people that you don't want, to be judged by, or to feel some type of way because of stigma, their life is just going to go on as is, where you're left behind, trying to do all of this work, on your own. So I think, the important part is of, like, how does it affect their life?
Right.
Because you need to do what you need to for yourself. And if it doesn't really, then they're just in your business, for no reason. And I think it's important, to know of, like, what do I need for me in the long run, even with these stigmas there, of like, will this thing matter a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that I did this? In the moment, probably will feel uncomfortable and I'm going against a stigma, but down the line, is it really going to matter?
And what you said earlier about how important therapy is, I think that's a lot. I think there's a large, a huge misconception about what therapy is used for.
Mhm.
because I know a lot of people may think that therapy is just for people who are dealing with
Yeah.
like crazy situations, but it doesn't have to be like that. And I think a lot of people, they don't think of therapy as an option when
Mm.
when they when they're having bad relationships. And I know that therapy can be a great way to understand how to be a better parent,
Mm-hmm.
a better friend, a better husband, a better wife. Um,
Right.
and I
Right.
think people need to understand that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's why I encourage, like, outside of, family beliefs, cultural beliefs, spiritual beliefs, of like doing your own research. Um, therapy. Because yeah, therapy can, anything that bothers you, you can go to, therapy for. It doesn't have to mean you're falling apart, you are barely hanging on. Like it simply could be like, I have anxiety about this math test coming up. We're going to help you find the tools to manage that anxiety so you can succeed on that math test. But because of the stigmas that are out there, and sometimes we don't get out of our little box, we just go with what we're told about therapy and mental health without doing our own work and really exploring, what that looks like.
And I know we're staying like a long time on this question, but one more thing. Um, when the question talks about like moving towards healing, I know a difficult or painful experience can be grief or losing a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what helped me was when I lost my grandma. Is it was hard. Like it was really hard because she was a part of my life for such a long time. She like we love each other a lot. But I also what helped me try to move on, but like still honor her, is to like start living life the way that she would want me to live.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
she wouldn't have wanted me to just remain sad. She would want me to thrive and continue to grow,
Mm-hmm.
honor her life by living my best life and living by her values that she tried to teach me.
Right, absolutely. And I think you getting there is you had time to kind of process and sit with those feelings to realize what you needed to be able to move forward. And that's why I was saying holding space, for those feelings, because it's going to tell you a lot. It's going to tell you a lot when you just allow yourself to just sit and allow your feelings, to just speak. But that important part about moving toward healing, especially with grief, being there, is how can I honor you in a way that's going to work for me, because I am not just going to be able to get past you're not here anymore, but I have to learn how to make life the best of what it is moving forward. And this is going to be my way of doing it.
I agree.
I
All
100%
right.
agree.
So moving on, self-worth versus people pleasing. Many young people and everyone struggle with seeking validation from others.
Mhm.
How can we build self-worth and confidence while learning to prioritize our own needs?
Yeah, I think it's difficult nowadays because with social media, there's a lot of
Yep.
comparison. There's a lot of things out there, expectations, how you should be, what you should have. Like a lot of these things are very much just like placed, on everyone. So I think a big part of that is really being comfortable with you, really being in tune with you. Because what we do is when we give other people the power to determine whether or not we're good enough by getting their validation, they get to pick and choose whenever they give it to you. So you may not ever get it versus you knowing for yourself, who you are and being confident in that. And that might also mean like for the people you're trying to get approval of, are you being your genuine self with them? Do you even like, these people? Is it just because I want to fit in, or no, like these are my people, and I want to be with them versus you trying to put yourself in a box that may not be for you for the sake of, well, that's what everybody, else like your people are out there. And I think that's the important part about, self-worth. Are you pouring into those parts of yourself that you might be judging or that you don't really like, or found, people that may not align with the things that you like. So a lot of, building that self-worth and confidence is, are you in hobbies that you like to do? Are you you like gaming? Are you hanging around, gaming conventions? Are you doing different things that where you're going to put yourself in places where the people that are like you don't have to do much. to be approved. You can just be yourself versus you trying to put yourself around people that are they really treating you well? And maybe not. And if not, why do I need, that validation? So prioritizing your own needs is going to be being uncomfortable for a little while to show yourself like you still are okay and you can find your people without meeting, everyone else's approval. But the more you do that, you'll never be able to see like, is it okay for me, to just be confident and comfortable in me?
I do agree, especially since your point of social media. And I know that, like, now that it's summer, people are probably spending more time on social media than throughout the school year.
Yeah,
So I think it, like, when we are using social media, I think it's super mindful to, like, make sure that we're not changing because we see other people on these, like, TikToks and, like, Instagram reels. Because,
yeah,
like, you have to understand that everyone lives their life and you don't really know what's esteem and to, like, just not let yourself down because of something you see
yeah.
on social media.
Right, absolutely. I always recommend cutting back too on use of social media, especially if you're already in a headspace where you're feeling
Mhm.
down about yourself. Then you're just fueling that place, by scrolling and seeing
Mhm.
certain things instead of like, what could I be doing to pour back into me, make more time for myself, shift the focus to me. So just being mindful of like, why am I really up here scrolling?
Mhm.
Am I doom scrolling because I'm not, feeling the best versus where else could that attention be focused on?
And on your point earlier on like asking yourself like, why do I have to fake myself just to please these people? Why do I have to act not my genuine self? You know, and I think a lot of people when they realize that if you're constantly trying to be a fake version of yourself, or
Mhm.
you're you're constantly fearful of upsetting these so-called friends, then
Yeah.
I think we should start to realize that maybe they're not true friends, maybe they're toxic,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
they're taking advantage of you.
Yeah. And that's a hard lesson to learn, being
Yeah.
in school, you want to fit in, you want to belong, you want to be popular. So it's like, I have to go against that, to be me. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, like you're still going to have a life after this,
Mhm.
you're still, going to be able to meet your people. Like life is still going to go on. Even if those people decide to be that way, they got to live with that. Your life doesn't have to stop because of, um, their lack of kindness.
Well put.
Next, we're going to be talking about healthy relationships and boundaries. So, as we know, healthy relationships are essential for our well being and, like, for whoever we're, like, having a relationship with, like, whether it's, like, a partner, family. So, what does it mean, in your words, to set healthy boundaries, and how can we use those to communicate effectively?
Yeah, setting healthy boundaries is first that to sitting with yourself, deciding what areas when you deal with other people that you don't like, it bothers you, it upsets you, like things that they're doing, that lets you know a boundary needs to be set. No matter how small, no matter how big it is, that lets you know I'm not okay with how you are treating me or how you're showing up. Something needs to be different. And I need you to respect that. So I think a lot of sometimes the idea of boundaries is like, oh, this is a punishment, or somebody's going to get upset, that I feel this way. This is saying of like, hey, I don't like this and I would appreciate if you would stop doing this. If they respect the and value the relationship, they're going to do that. If they choose not to, that shows you that what that person feels, about that relationship or friendship. So I think a lot of setting healthy boundaries is knowing what boundaries, needs to be set. And then working on how you view boundaries. Because if you see it in a negative way, you're gonna hold back,
Right.
um, from doing that. And of course, we can't control the reaction. Some people are not going to like it, but at the end of the day, that tells you a lot. Either they're going to make the changes because they want to have that relationship with you, or they're not, and then it's up to you to do something about it, which you can choose ignore it or not do anything, and then they're going to keep doing the same things that frustrate you, and you don't want that to turn into resentment.
Right.
As
Right.
the other person. So I would say the way that you can communicate them effectively, like it doesn't have to be rude, it doesn't have to be mean, but I would say kind of direct. And I like this thing called I statements. So a lot of times when we talk to people, we're like, you did this, you, and that can create, a wall. So I statements are more so like you are taking ownership of what you're feeling, but you're also letting the person know what you need from them. So it could be like, I feel overwhelmed when you keep calling while I'm trying to do my homework. So moving forward, can you wait till after 7 o'clock to give me a call? So that's not saying like, hey, you need to stop doing this. It's just saying, hey, this is what it does to me when you keep doing this. So I would appreciate if you would do this moving forward. And that's setting a boundary.
Right.
I like your I statements because I think it's like a very respectful way to say like communicate how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know like if you just try to like argue with them or like attack their character maybe, then it can just like it just you can just go like
Yeah.
sideways. People just gonna be fighting, arguing,
Yeah.
insulting each other.
Yeah.
But when you do I statements, I think that the other person should first, respect how you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
because it's not how they feel, it's how I feel.
Right.
And if you don't, and if you're still like, if you don't respect that and you're still not caring, then that's a red flag that maybe I need to distance myself from you.
Right, absolutely. And don't let anyone make you feel bad about setting boundaries. That just means that you're doing something that changes how they have to act and show up, and they don't like that. And it's like, okay, you don't like it, you have that choice, but I don't have to just tolerate or deal with it for the sake of you don't like it, because you don't want to make the change.
And I realize in some situations people just don't feel like talking to their like partner or like family member, whoever's causing them this like stress, because
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to be seen as selfish or they don't want to disappoint the other by
Mm-hmm.
making them think that they have like problems within them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's a very very real thing because the other people probably have given them a reason,
Mhm.
to feel that way. And it's like we can't change that part. You can honestly say something in the nicest way possible and somebody still might have a problem with it, but it's more so the goal isn't necessarily to like, I got you to understand, so now you're going to change. The goal is, I told you how I feel, and what you do with that is on you, but it lets me know what I might have to do moving forward to
Mhm.
take care of myself.
And I think I read this, I think I read this somewhere. It may not be true, but like a lack of communication was like a really big factor in like relationships ending.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think people should really understand like it's better to just say it,
Yeah.
just hold on to these feelings, hold
Mm-hmm.
on to this like sadness or gloominess that
Yeah.
that they're building that's building up inside you.
Yeah.
It's better to just say it.
Right, absolutely. Communication is important because sometimes we think others can read our minds and they just know what we need. And it's
Mhm.
like, then you get frustrated when nothing happens. So it's like, communication is absolutely your otherwise. You're going to hold on to all of that and it's not going to go up anywhere and it's going to blow up one day, and then it's all going to come out because of just, holding back so much.
Yeah, like some people may be bad at taking hints. Just be
Mm-hmm.
like maybe after like the third time, just be direct.
Right, right. Being there, absolutely.
All right. So, breaking negative thought patterns. So, negative self talk can have a powerful impact on our mental health. How can we recognize unhealthy thought patterns and begin replacing them with healthier, more balanced ways of thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big part of recognizing is getting it down somewhere. We might recognize it in our head because it's so automatic and then it goes away. Of like trying to, I call it thought tracking. Keep track of what you're thinking. At the end of the day, what are some thoughts I had today? And it doesn't have to be negative. It could just be of like, what came up for me today that I noticed a shift and how I was feeling. Jot it down. The more that you can put it down and go back and see these different patterns and see, what's there, you can start to kind of recognize, okay, I realize with this certain person, I'm always thinking this way, about myself in different things like that, because that lets you know something needs to be done there. Whether it's a boundary, whether it's you need to see yourself in a different way, like that lets you know, what unhealthy thought patterns are there to kind of be able to start doing the work towards how do we, make change. So a lot of replacing it is, um, I, I like to say kind of compare it to like, what facts do you have? Like, what proof do you have that these thoughts are true, and what proof do you have that these thoughts are not true? And like actual proof, like if you had to go in front of a judge and use this information, that would be the proof, because we want to be mindful of like feelings talking. Like, your feelings are valid. We're not saying that at all, but a feeling sometimes may not be a fact. So it could like, I feel like they don't like me, but you don't have any proof that says that. So, to challenge and replace to have healthier thinking is like, what is really happening right here beyond just what I feel or what I'm telling myself.
And what you say, what you tell yourself is, really important because, like, the person that you live with is like all the time that you can't escape from is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're telling yourself that, you're like all these bad things, like you're dumb or you can't do it, then you're just hurting yourself. But I know that's easier said than done. Because when
Mm-hmm.
you most of the time when you're giving these bad self-talk, it's emotionally, it's not, you may not be thinking logically.
Right, right.
But I think that people have to understand that negative self-talk, like the truth is, it just makes things worse. It doesn't help you
Yeah.
like address what you're trying to fix. If that's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, no, negative self talk, again, sometimes it has a reason for being there. I won't say, like, oh, you should judge yourself or shame yourself, for having negative self talk. Your negative self talk came from somewhere. You didn't just, wake up one day, talking, negative to yourself. Like, there's been experiences and things you've been through, and sometimes we have to sit with, why am I even doing this? Where does this even come from? Who would say these types of things to me? Because sometimes it's a certain person that you learned that from, to be able to help you understand, like, is it really mine, or is it something that I just always carry from other places?
And I know some people, like, when they do have negative self-talk, they often like believe it more than positive. Like, even if they try to hype themselves up afterwards, or they try to like say that, oh, like, I'm so good at this, like, I'm good at this, their negative self-thought kind of like trumps their positive self-thoughts.
Hmm.
So would you have like anything to like help them like cope or anything with that?
Yeah, I think, sometimes we might have to refine the idea of like, okay, you need to have a positive thought, because sometimes, like, some people just, I don't see anything, positive. So I think I like to say, like, let's look at a realistic, thought. Again, using the negative thought, nobody likes me. um Feelings wise, you might be like, yeah, because this person didn't talk to me, so that confirms nobody likes me. Where I would say, like, okay, instead of being positive and like, oh yeah, everybody likes me, or I am loved, of like, let's be, realistic here. Of, I've been invited to several of events, and maybe I just wasn't invited to this one. That doesn't mean, I'm not liked, but that doesn't just make it completely all positive if the person is having a hard time resonating what positive means to them.
Mm-hmm. That is very well said.
100%.
And lastly, is knowing when to seek help. So, how can someone recognize when they do need additional support? And what advice would you give to teens who feel hesitant or are afraid to reach out for help?
Yeah, I think back to the stigma. You don't have to be falling apart, to be able to know that you need additional support. If something is disrupting, or it's just like it's really inconvenient, it's frustrating, I got to keep feeling or dealing with this, that lets you know you need some additional, support. I know for me, I have type 1 diabetes. So at some point, I had to recognize that I needed some additional support, because I was like, I'm tired of doing this. This is a lot of work. Have people coming all directions. Are you eating right? Are you doing, like, it's so much that you have to deal with. So sometimes if you feel like I'm just overwhelmed, or this is a lot, even if it's like I'm still getting through, I'm still acing my classes, like I'm still doing all the things, that doesn't mean you don't need help. That means you're good at masking, or suppressing,
Right.
putting it to the side, what is going on. So if something, I even just use the word bothers, if something bothers you and it's a recurrent thing, and you notice it keeps coming up, that probably lets you know that, I should talk with someone. Again, doesn't have to be a negative connotation to mean like, oh, I'm weak, or oh, I can't figure this out. This says like, I just need some extra support, somebody to give me some resources that I don't have. Once I learn how to use it, I'm good to go. And,
Mm-hmm.
and can keep it moving, instead of feeling like this places me in some type of life sentence that I have to, have this additional support that's going to make me be seen in a bad way. And nobody has to know your business. I think that's another thing for teens that are hesitant or afraid to reach out, because of what other people think. The challenging part is parents. I will say that because
Mhm.
you do need your parents' consent, to be able to engage in therapy. But sometimes it might not start there. Again, is there someone trusted at your school that you could talk with about how you're feeling, that could maybe speak with your parents, so many different ways of um, reaching out, but not necessarily directly. If you don't feel comfortable, speaking with your parents, but being able to still have a trusted person on top of, not saying use social media, but there's like different support groups and, different things of where you don't have to directly jump into, therapy. There are ways that you probably want to connect
Mhm.
those that are going through and feeling through some of the things that you're feeling. So it's like you can build up the courage, to reach out for help, but that just might look like going a longer way about it. And that's, more so of like really asking yourself, will I be fine being this way and living like this for the next 30, 40, 50 years? If so, fine, go for it. But if the answer is no, that probably tells you the risk is worth, you know, seeking out the help instead of having to carry that year after year after year.
Right. And I wanted to point out something Caleb said earlier. He said for people don't really know what therapy is about, and they just kind of like have this like mental representation of what they think it's about, and they're too embarrassed. Some of them are too
Mhm.
embarrassed to go to therapy. So I think that's like a big reason why teens like suppress their negative thoughts in them, because they just don't want to express it in the way to feel judged in like society.
Yeah, and that's too finding the right person. That's why I was like, you're probably gonna have to be a little uncomfortable in this process because you may come across people who you thought were safe people and you might get judgment, but not letting that one person stop you
Right.
from continuing. Because there are people, therapists, trusted adults, friends out there who are not going, to judge, but sometimes it's like, oh, I tried it and it didn't go so well, so I'm never gonna do that again. And that we don't want to let that one person disrupt, what you could have for you and genuinely being happy.
Right. Right.
And I think that a lot of people, they don't value their mental health enough, because I know, like, teens and adults, they may they have goals in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's to get a promotion or get like all A's.
Yeah.
But most of the time people take it to extremes where they don't value their mental health, where maybe their sleep is affected, or they're burnt out, stressed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's really relevant to today. And I think that people need to realize that your mental health is not something to not prioritize, not to take granted for. Because like what do you gain like when you finally get your goals if you feel
Mm-hmm.
depressed or
Right.
stressed out and empty inside? I
Yeah.
think people need to start to like um prioritizing work-life balance,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that's how I think you live the most fulfilling life.
Right, absolutely. And I think that all starts with community and education. So like the work that y'all are doing, to be able to reach, other teens and to be able to spread this information is important because if they don't have it coming from anywhere else or whatever they're around, I know for me culturally, it just was not talked about. So I really didn't know, too much about it of like if they aren't able to get that information, how can they, really just make that step versus, being able to have different types of program and education, to introduce it in the communities, especially where mental health is stigmatized, to be able to start to work on dismantling those challenges.
Um, would you have any advice to someone who may have someone in their life who they may suspect or is dealing with mental health problems?
Yeah, of course, because that's a sensitive subject, we don't want them to feel shame or judged by, being at that place. I think a lot of it is first just letting them know that you're there if they need you, so they do know they have support. Letting them know I'm here if you ever want to talk, because we don't want to just like force it out someone if that's where they're not comfortable at. So we just want to be able to provide a space of like if you do need anything, I'm here. And then also I like to tell clients of like, Supporting doesn't always, have to be like, I need to be doing something to get them out of this. This could just be a listening ear, me just sitting beside you. Little things like that, help. But I think if you really have a concern of like, okay, there's something significant here, sometimes just providing them the resources. Hey, I heard about this therapist. I just want to give you this information. You can maybe share it with your parents, if you would like. And like, at least they have the resources and they see that someone is trying versus like that you need to do this.
And I think people, they like it may like logically it may seem like it's obvious that they love them,
Mm-hmm.
but people like to be reminded that they're supported. So I think people should, make sure to check in on their family members, friends, send them a text, call, or
Yeah.
just say what's up, and it makes people feel like, you know, I'm a part of your life, and
Right.
I like that.
Right. Absolutely. I want to leave too of like, we do like to recognize those that we notice are going through different things, but I think it's just as important to like check on your strong friends, your friends where it seems like they have everything together, everything is going just fine, because sometimes they're able to hide, what's there. So just that reaching out doesn't have to always look like the people like, okay, I can tell they're going through something, because the ones that maybe doesn't seem, like there may be something there that nobody just ever asked about because they come off as if they don't need it.
And I think with that, we're gonna wrap up the episode. So thank you so much, Miss Harris, for being here for our second episode. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us and your insight. We really appreciate you spending time to talk with us, because this is a
Mhm.
topic that not only our chapter cares a lot about, but
Yeah.
a lot of people who may be watching who are dealing with
Hmm.
mental health issues and they were looking for advice. And I know that your answers help a lot of people. So
Yeah.
thank
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. And this is a part of breaking the stigma, being able to share this
Right.
information.
you. All right. Well, thank you for being here, and bye.
Right. Have a great day.